Welcome everybody. Hope everyone's having a great morning this morning. Looks like it's gonna be a beautiful weekend. Hopefully after this, everyone can get outside and enjoy this great weather. I appreciate you all being here. My name is John Rodriguez. I'm one of the UT Arlington Financial Aid Associate Directors of Customer Service and Outreach here at UTA. What we'll be doing today is we'll be going over the financial aid application process, some of the financial aid programs, as well as the scholarship programs and criteria for the upcoming school year for the fall 2021, spring 2022 aid year. I'm going to go over the financial aid portion of the presentation here in a minute. Our UTA Director of Scholarships here at UTA will be Justin Silcox, will be going over the scholarship portion. So he'll be following me with his presentation. If you have any questions during or after our scheduled presentation, on the right side of your screen, you should see a live event Q&A window that you can put your questions in there. So we do have staff, our financial aid counseling staff here in the chat. So if you have questions during our presentation, go ahead, feel free to ask your questions on the right side, and then we'll be answering them throughout the presentation. Then after our scheduled presentation, we'll be going and answering some of those questions, or if you have questions after the presentation, if we didn't cover something that you had questions about, go ahead and put your question in at that time as well, and we'll go ahead and answer it live after our scheduled presentation. After our presentation, there is a survey that we ask, if you just, it's like a five question survey, just letting us know how we did, what we could do to improve our presentation. We're hoping to have more of these in the future, both for current students at UTA as well as prospective students, high school seniors, transfer students, stuff like that. So we'll show you at the end of the presentation where to find that link. The survey linkage is on our events page on the UTA Contact Us page where you RSVP'd or where you joined this event today. At the very bottom, there's an orange box and it'll just say survey. So we just ask, it would help us out if you filled out that survey, just letting us know how we did and how we can improve. After the presentation, after this session event is over, if you need to rewatch the event, you can re-click the same link you used to join the event, either through the email we sent you yesterday or on our events page on our website, and you can rewatch the event almost immediately after it's over, up to 90 days. So we'll have that on our website if you need to rewatch it, or if you have friends or family that this information could be useful to them, go ahead and share it. They can watch it. We'll save it, so it should be up there even past the 90 days, but it automatically saves for at least 90 days. We'll also have the PDF version of our PowerPoint. So the presentation that we're going to give today, if you don't want to rewatch the whole event, you will have the link on that events page where you can just click on it and you can just view a PDF version of the presentation. So if there's something that you hear and you're like, oh, I can't remember, what the criteria was for that scholarship or something, you could save that, or you could just go to the website, click on that, and you can review all the information on there. So again, go ahead and ask your questions during the presentation or afterwards, and I'll go ahead and get started with our financial aid presentation. Let me share my screen here and we'll get started. Give me 1 second. All right, so Justin, can y'all see my presentation now?
No, not yet. We still see the PowerPoint window, but it's not in presentation mode.
Okay. Oh, so you can't see the window, correct?
Okay, yeah.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. So like I said, we're gonna, this is the UTA Financial Aid Overview, and it'll include scholarships. My name is John Rodriguez. I'm the Associate Director of Customer Service and Outreach. That is my email. So my email, jonathanr@uta.edu. So if you have any questions after the presentation, any point in the future regarding financial aid, I'd be more than happy to help you. So you can go ahead and email me if you want to write down my email. Again, that'll be on the contact page if you want to review this presentation. So if you want to get it later. I am a UTA alumni, graduated from UTA in 2005. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in advertising communication, and I've worked in our UTA financial aid office for 19 years. I was a federal work study student when I was a student at UTA from 2001 to 2005. We'll go into the work study program later on in our presentation. So I did utilize a lot of these programs that we're going to go over today. So I'm excited to share that information and give you, and hopefully you have access to those same programs that you can graduate at UTA with the least amount of debt as possible. So We'd like to first start the presentation off with this slide. You and the federal government is investing in your future. So, you know, the federal grant programs, federal loan programs, work study programs, all the state programs, the government's investing in your future. You are investing in your future. A college education is an investment. So we just like to remind people, hopefully it'll pay dividends after you graduate, earn your degree. But again, you are investing in your future. A little bit about UTA, who we are. Diversity is a core value here at UTA. We really value diversity on our campus and in our student body. Students from varying backgrounds find UTA a right fit for them. We are the sixth highest diverse rank. We have the sixth highest diversity rank in the nation. Compared to other colleges as of 2019. So we have people from all different backgrounds on our campus, which when I was in school, I really appreciated that. I met people from all over the world that I had never met people from those areas of the world before that. So I really valued that portion of my college education when I was at UTA. We do have 300 plus student organizations, so there's a lot of opportunities to get involved on campus and at UTA when you're here. We have over 29,000 undergraduate students and over 60,000 global enrollment, including our online enrollment here at UTA. We have 9,200 or more living on or adjacent to campus, so there's a lot of people on campus, close to campus, a lot of things to do. Arlington there's a lot going up in Arlington, a lot of things. Especially compared to when I was in school back in early 2000. Downtown Arlington is really coming up. There's a lot to do. So having that close to campus is definitely a benefit for our students. We're also #1 in Texas for veterans. So our veteran population is a population we really value on campus, and we do everything we can to help them achieve their goals and earn their college degrees and education. So again, we're here to help. So the Financial Aid Office and Scholarship Office here at UTA is here to help. We're always open for, if you have questions at all, whether you're a prospective student or current student, we always want to help our students as much as we can, get the knowledge, get the financial aid, the scholarships that they need to earn their degree. Over 70% of UTA students receive some type of financial aid, so that includes grants, loans, scholarship, work study. So over almost 3/4 of our student body are on some sort of financial aid at UTA. And we give out, or we award approximately $500 million every year in financial aid. So that's $500 million. So there is opportunities out there to help you earn your education and pay for your education. College isn't cheap, as we're going to go into on the next slide, but there is money out there. You just need to know how to apply for it and when to apply for it, which hopefully this presentation will help you with that. So as I said earlier, college is an investment and college isn't cheap. Each school, especially at UTA, they have what's called an estimated cost of attendance. Now, students see this number, almost 28,000, and they think, oh man, 28,000, I'm gonna have to come up with $28,000 to attend UTA in the fall and spring. This is just an estimate. So it's all gonna depend on individual basis, on what the individual specific student, what their charges are, what their expenses are when they're in school. So, you know, the average tuition and fees for fall and spring semester for a full-time undergraduate student is about $11,620. So that's going to roughly be about the same, you know, no matter what, you know, which student, as long as you're a full-time undergraduate student. But everything else, like books and supplies, housing and meals, transportation, personal miscellaneous, these are just estimates. So it depends on like where you buy your books. You could rent your books, it could be much cheaper. You can get them online, they could be much cheaper. Housing and meals, if you live at home with your parents, you may not have housing costs, where someone living on campus may have housing costs. Same thing with transportation. You know, you may not have a car, or you may not travel as far as some other students commuting. So all these are just estimates. So we just like to remind people, don't look at the bottom line of almost $28,000 and think, oh, I'm gonna have to save up and come up with $28,000 in aid and scholarships and personal money to attend UTA. These are just estimates, but we use this estimated cost of attendance to award students financial aid. So if your estimated cost of attendance is $27,996 for the fall and spring semesters next year, that's how much total financial aid you could receive up to. So, you know, let's say you get a federal Pell Grant and a federal loan and some scholarships. Until you reach that cost of attendance, you can still apply for and receive aid up until you've reached that maximum estimated cost of attendance. So the first step we always encourage students to do is fill out the FAFSA application. So if you are going to be attending UTA next fall, so fall of 2021, you want to fill out the 2021-2022 FAFSA application. So that's the free application for federal student aid. You can apply for it online. It's at studentaid.gov. You may have also heard of FAFSA.gov. That's the same website. So if you put in FAFSA.gov, it'll reroute you to studentaid.gov. A couple years ago, they kind of rebranded the FAFSA website to studentaid.gov because there's a lot more to do on that website more than just the FAFSA application. So before it was just, you go on to FAFSA.gov, fill out the application, and then that was it. But on studentaid.gov, not only can you do the FAFSA application, but you could check once you're in school, like if you borrowed federal loans, you could check all your federal loans you've ever borrowed, who the lender is, what the interest rate is. You can look up federal programs, repayment plans for your loans. You can look at how much Pell Grant you've used as an undergraduate student once you're a student. So there's a lot more to do on studentaid.gov than there used to be on the FAFSA.gov website. So it's a very helpful website. We encourage you to go out and just check it out. Like I said, you could search things. There's a lot of helpful information on there. So when you're filling out the FAFSA application, it's going to ask you at one of the last steps is what schools you want the Federal Department of Education to send your FAFSA application data to. So it's going to ask you what the school codes are. So if you are going to attend UTA next fall, you want to put our school code, which is 003656. So you could list up to 10 schools on there. So if, hopefully UTA is one of them that you're interested in, but if you're interested in other schools, you can list up to 10. So you don't have to memorize or look up, all 10 of those schools or 5, however many schools you're going to put on their school codes. They'll have a search engine on the FAFSA website where you can look up, University of Texas at Arlington, and it'll pull up the school code. So you can list up to 10 schools on there. The FAFSA application is going to apply you for not only federal loans, but federal grants and state and institutional grants. So to qualify for the maximum grant funding, we always encourage students to apply as early as possible. So if you get anything out of this presentation today, the number one thing that we want to remind you and encourage you to do is apply early. So apply early, apply early. That's for both scholarships. So we'll go into scholarships at the end. So and a lot of that's based on when you're admitted to UTA, but also when you submit the FAFSA application. So the priority deadline for all public colleges in the state of Texas is January 15th. So the state says that public colleges need to prioritize grant funding like state grant money and institutional grant money to students who apply and submit their FAFSA application are admitted to your university by January 15th. So some programs like the federal grant, like federal Pell Grant and federal loans, those don't run out, but there are state and institutional grants that the FAFSA will apply you for at the university that are limited. So even if you're eligible for those grant money, like the state grant money, if you don't apply until after January 15th, even if you're eligible, you may not get that money because the school, we may have run out of money by then. So we encourage you to apply as early as possible. So again, that includes submitting your FAFSA application, turning in all required documents. So we'll go into the verification process here in a minute, but some FAFSA applications are selected for a process called verification, where we may ask for some additional documents from you. So if we do, you need to submit those additional documents to our office by January 15th. Also, as I said, you have to be admitted to our university by January 15th. So as long as you've done the FAFSA, if we've requested any documents from you, you've been admitted to UTA by January 15th, if you're eligible for the maximum grants we offer, you'll receive those. But if you apply much later, the funding may be limited, or it will be limited, but they may be out by the time you apply. So when you fill out the FAFSA application, the FAFSA becomes available every October 1st. So again, the 2021-2022 FAFSA application for next summer and fall came out October 1st of this year. So next year, if you're going to be a student, your second year in college, next October 1st, 2021, the FAFSA will become available for the following school year. So we just remind people every October, go out there, do your FAFSA application if you're thinking about going to college the next year, just so the school has it on file if you are going to attend that school the following school year. On the FAFSA application, you're going to report your income information as well as your parents if you're a dependent student. But there is a tool, a very helpful tool called the Irs Data Retrieval tool. So again, with some of the verification documentation that the school may request from you, after you submit your FAFSA, we may request like your tax documents, your tax returns, your parents' tax returns, stuff like that. But if you're eligible for and you use the Irs Data Retrieval tool when you're filling out the FAFSA application, that may reduce the documentation required by the financial aid office. And the reason is because if you're eligible, and it'll tell you on there if you're eligible for it to use it, but if you use it, when you're filling out the FAFSA, the Federal Department of Education will pull in your income information and your parents' income information directly from the IRS. So when you submit it, the Department of Education has already essentially confirmed your tax information. So that means the school doesn't have to confirm that if you're selected for verification. So we do tell students that if you're able to use the data retrieval tool, we highly encourage you to use the the Irs Data Retrieval tool when you're filling out the FAFSA application. So in order to sign the FAFSA application, the student and the parent will both have an FSA ID number or Federal Student Aid ID number. Like I said, the student and the parent each must create their own FSA ID and password. The first step when you fill out the FAFSA, when you go to studentaid.gov and click on the link to fill out the FAFSA, one of the first steps will be to create it. So you don't need to go to a separate website to create the FSA ID. It'll be one of the first steps you'll complete when you're filling out the FAFSA application. We remind students to make sure you write that down. It's a very important ID and password. You're going to use that in future years as well when you're filling out the FAFSA every year. Also, like I said, if you go over to studentaid.gov and log in, if you want to check your loan history, how much federal Pell Grant you've used, stuff like that, you're going to use the same FSA ID and password to do that. As well as on studentaid.gov, if you borrow a federal loan, you'll need to do what's called the master promissory note. And to log into studentaid.gov again to complete that paper, that documentation or that step for your loan process, you'll need that FSA ID and password as well. So whenever a student fills out the FAFSA application, the Federal Department of Education puts all your income information, your parents' income information, your household size, all the information you enter on the FAFSA application into a formula, and then they produce what's called an EFC number or an expected family contribution. So that EFC number is what the university uses to determine how much grant money, how much loan money, what financial aid programs you're eligible for based on that EFC number. So the lower that EFC number, the more likely you'll receive grants. So if you fill out the FAFSA application and it says it's successful and it says your EFC number is 0, that's the lowest it can go. So that means that you'll qualify for the maximum grant funding that institutional offers as long as you apply early enough. So again, apply early. So if you do have a low EFC and you're eligible for all those grant programs, that the school will offer them to you. So the EFC number, again, it's an estimated amount that the family can reasonably be expected to contribute for the student's education. And there's two components that make up the EFC number. There's parents' contribution and the student's contribution. So again, it'll be based on the student's income, the parents' income that you list on there, stuff like that. But there'll be two factors that will combine and make up the total EFC number that the university will use to determine what financial aid that you're eligible for. So again, it's calculated using the data from your FAFSA and TASFA application. So if you're going to be attending UTA or college next fall, again, you're going to fill out the 2021-2022 FAFSA, and you're going to list income information for you and your parents for 2019. So it's going to be 2 years prior for when you're going to attend, that you're going to report on the FAFSA application. Now we know the federal government and UTA and universities know a lot can change in 2 years. So I'll go into a special circumstance process a little later in the presentation. So if there is some kind of change of income or anything in the household, you can report that to your to the university that you're going to attend. And again, the lower the EFC number, the more likely you'll receive grants. So as I stated earlier, there is a process called verification that on average 1 out of every 3 FAFSA applicants are selected. It's a random process that the Department of Education selects. So when you fill out the FAFSA, the Federal Department of Education will determine if you as an applicant are selected for verification. So when the institution receives your FAFSA application, they'll get a note on the FAFSA saying whether or not you were selected for verification and what documents are needed to verify at the institutional level before the institution can offer you financial aid. So again, using that Irs Data Retrieval tool that we encourage all students who are able to complete or to utilize on the FAFSA, that'll reduce what documentation may be requested. So we hope that you use that when you're filling it out. If selected for verification, the school will notify you as an applicant of the forms, the documentation that is needed. At UTA, we will send you an email to your university email account, as well as mail you a letter in the mail, use U.S. Postal Service, to let you know if there's any additional documentation that's needed to complete your FAFSA application and the financial aid process at UTA. So we do tell students to check your UTA email address often. So once you become a student, just I would say, frequently check your email address, because if there's any documentation or requests coming from the university, all that's going to be going through your UTA email address. So also your student portal. So once you become a student, you can log into the UTA website, something called MyMav here at UTA, and you can look on your to-do list to see if there's any outstanding documents, whether it's from admissions, financial aid, student accounts, any other department on campus that's requesting a document from you. It'll be listed in your student portal as well. So we encourage students to check that as frequently as possible as well. Verification can take several weeks to process. So let's say you do your FAFSA application. We contact you letting you know that we need a copy of your parents' 2019 tax return. Once you submit that, it could take a couple weeks depending on how busy the office is to process. So that's another reason why we encourage, and the U.S. Department of Education encourages you to do the FAFSA application as soon as possible. That way, if you wait until August to do your FAFSA application right before the fall semester is going to start, if you're selected for verification, it may take a couple weeks for our office to process your documents. And then, your payment may be coming up. You may not have aid awarded yet to cover your payment. So you may need to set up a payment plan or something. So we don't want that to happen. So that's why we want you to complete your FAFSA application and turn in the documents as soon as possible, just so all that is already completed before you attend school in the fall semester. So as I was talking about earlier, there is a process called special circumstance form. So again, the U.S. Department of Education and UTA and other universities know that when you fill out the FAFSA, the income information you report on there from 2019, if you're filling it out for next year, may not be accurate right now. So especially this year, but every year there may be changes, like you or a parent may have lost a job, or you got another job that doesn't work as much, or your hours were cut due to various reasons. There may have been a death in the family, parent or a spouse, maybe a parent or spouse, you're getting divorced or separated. So any kind of loss of income or change of financial status, we encourage you to contact our financial aid office to see if you may, the special circumstance process may be something that you could take advantage of. So if, let's say, based on your 2019 income information, you were only qualified for loans, let's say, and you weren't qualified for grants, but let's say, there's a large reduction of income this year and the income information from 2019 isn't accurate anymore. If you fill out the special circumstance form, and the form can be found on our website, each institution will have their own special circumstance form. So this process will be completed through the university, not on the federal like the FAFSA or the federal level. So the form will tell you what documentation is needed. So, if there's a loss of job, we usually ask for last pay stubs, something documenting when your last work date was. But once you submit all that, we'll look at it to see if we can make changes to your FAFSA application. And then if there's a reduction of income, you may qualify for a grant that you may not have qualified for initially on your initial FAFSA application, because the FAFSA asks for old financial information. So if you think this is something that may apply to you, after you do that, you'll first do the FAFSA application, and then we encourage you to contact the financial aid office to see if this is something that you could take advantage of and that might apply to you. So the FAFSA application is going to apply you for multiple types of financial aid. So there's two types of aid. There's gift aid and self-help aid. So gift aid is, no payments required. So those are like your federal grants, your state grants, your institutional grants, as well as scholarships. It'll also apply you for self-help aid or aid that needs to be repaid or you need to work to earn. So that includes like federal student loans, like the subsidized and unsubsidized loan, which we'll go into in a minute. Those require repayment. So you would receive the money now, and then after you graduate, or after you hopefully not, but after you drop out of school, you would have to start the repayment process to repay those loans. There's also a program called Federal Work Study, which we'll go into in a minute. And if you're eligible for that, the FAFSA, on the FAFSA, it'll ask you if you're interested. We always tell students just to check that they're interested in the Federal Work Study program. That way, if you're eligible, we'll award it to you, and that gives you an opportunity to find a job on campus. So while that's different than like grant money would pay towards your tuition and charges at the university up front at the beginning of the semester. If you have work study, if you find a work study job on campus, that's not any money that'll disperse like in a lump sum at the beginning of the semester to credit your charges. You would work and earn money like a normal job. You get paid every 2 weeks as you work, and the money you get paid with just comes out of that fund. So it's a little bit different than other financial aid programs, but that's another financial aid program that the FAFSA application will apply you for. So there are what's called need-based programs. So these are going to be based on that EFC number. So the lower your EFC number, the more likely you're going to qualify for these type of grants or aid programs. So that includes like Pell Grant, federal Pell Grant, federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, or FSEOG. Those are 2 federal grants that the FAFSA application will automatically apply you for. At UTA, we also offer institutional and other state grants. So that includes MAV grant, which is an institutional grant at UTA, as well as the Texas Public Education Grant, which is a state grant program. Those programs are limited. So those are the programs where if you apply after the priority date, even if you meet the eligibility requirements, you may not receive those if we've already run out of funding. So again, we encourage students to fill out the FAFSA and apply as soon as possible. Also, as I was talking about earlier, there's a federal work-study program that's also need-based, so that'll be based on your EFC number and if you qualify for or not. But those are just some examples of need-based programs. As a reminder, if you are offered grants when you're attending school, the school or UTA will offer you an assumed full-time enrollment. So as an undergraduate student, that's 12 credit hours per semester. So if you end up going less than full-time, doesn't mean you're not going to get the grant, but it could be prorated or reduced. So if, let's say you're going half-time, if you're taking 6 hours in the fall, the grant amount that we offered you initially, you'll get 50% of that if you go half-time opposed to full-time. So we just want to remind students of that. So one of the larger and great grant programs, state grant programs that we offer at UTA is called the Texas Grant Program. This is for, I'll go over the eligibility requirements, but it's a great grant program because if you're eligible for this and you apply early enough and you receive this grant program, it's renewable up to 5 years or up to you earning your degree. And if you receive the Texas grant, the university has to cover your tuition and tuition related fees with need-based programs. So that doesn't include loans. So that includes Pell Grant if you're eligible, the Texas Grant Program. If you have scholarships, the school can take that into consideration. But if you receive at least $1 in Texas grant money, the university has to cover your tuition fees. So again, this is a great grant program that's available if you're eligible, but you have to apply early. So the basic requirements are you have to enroll in a 4-year public university, at least 9 credit hours within 16 months of graduating from a Texas high school. So, you know, if you're a high school senior right now and you apply and you attend UTA or another school right after you graduate, then if you're eligible, you know, that you would meet that requirement. You also have to be registered with Selective Service. So if you're a male, at least 18 years or older, you'll need to register with Selective Service if you haven't done that already, or be exempt. So if you're female or if you qualify for some kind of exemption, not to be required to file for register with Selective Service, you'll meet that requirement. As I said, it's a need-based program, so institutions need to, or the state tells institutions to prioritize students with EFC or that expected family contribution. This year was 6,000, the EFC number was 6,047 or less. And then again, it's a limited fund, so you know you need to apply early if you may qualify for this, so you can take advantage of those funds. You also have to be classified as a Texas resident, so this isn't eligible for out-of-state students or anything. You have to be classified as a Texas resident for tuition purposes at the institution. And you also have, you can't have been convicted of a felony or a crime involving a controlled substance. So if you want more information about this grant program, again, the FAFSA application will automatically apply you for this, but you can go onto our website, which is uta.edu/FAO, or you can go onto the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board website, which is collegeforalltexans.com. So if you want to read more about this grant program, you can find information there. So here at UTA, we do offer financial aid to our TASFA applicants. So the TASFA application is essentially it's a paper FAFSA application. It is a different application. It's the Texas application for student financial aid, but it'll ask the same questions as the FAFSA application, but it is a paper application. So this application is for students who don't qualify to complete the FAFSA application. So in order to qualify to complete the FAFSA application, you have to be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or an eligible non-citizen. It'll list what those are when you fill out the FAFSA. So if you don't qualify to fill out the FAFSA, if you don't meet one of those citizenship or eligibility requirements, on the FAFSA application, you might qualify to complete a TASFA application. So the main population this targets is our undocumented or DACA students. So if you do fall in that population, that category of student, we encourage you to complete a TASFA application. You can find that in our office or on our website, or again on that College for All Texans website. Like I said, we at UTA do offer financial aid to this population of students. Other institutions may not. So if you're looking at other institutions, we encourage you to contact their financial aid office to see what opportunities there are for undocumented or DACA students or TASFA applicants, if any, at that institution. But here at UTA, we offer the Texas Grant Program as the program we offer our TASFA applicants. So again, if you are eligible and you apply early enough and you receive that money, you could have your tuition and tuition-related fees paid for all 4 or 5 years you're at our university. So it's a great program that even students who may not qualify for FAFSA do the TASFA may be eligible for as well. So again, these funds for the TASFA applicants at UTA is even more limited than our state grant money for FAFSA applicants. So for this population, it's really important that you complete the TASFA application and all the necessary documentation by that January 15th deadline, because we don't want you to miss out on any money that you may be eligible to receive. So the FAFSA application, not only will it apply you for federal and state grants, it'll also apply you for federal student loans. So there are 2 types of federal student loans. There's the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan. So both of these for undergraduate students right now have a 2.75% interest rate, so that it's a pretty low interest rate. These are great loans. Both of these you don't have to start paying back until after you graduate or after you drop out of school. So if either of those happen, you'll have a 6-month grace period, and then you'll choose a repayment plan through your lender, which will be the Federal Department of Education, and then you'll start making payments every month on your federal student loans. Now the difference is the subsidized loan is a need-based program, and that's interest-free while you're in school. So while the interest may be 2.75% when you go into repayment, the subsidized loan is not collecting interest while you're in school. So that's a need-based program. The lower the EFC number, the more likely you'll get be offered a subsidized loan. But even if you have a very high EFC number, you should qualify for at least a federal unsubsidized loan. The criteria and the repayment options and stuff are all the same as a subsidized, but the only difference is the unsubsidized loan, it starts collecting interest while you're in school. So you don't have to pay it while you're in school. You could choose to if you'd like to, but you're not required to pay it while you're in school, but it will be collecting interest while you're in school. And again, you'd start paying it back with that interest 6 months after you graduate or 6 months after you drop below half time in school. This is the current interest rate for undergraduate students. So every July 1st, the interest rate changes. So if you borrow a loan 1 year, that loan will be fixed at that interest rate. But then if you borrow another federal loan the following year, the interest rate may change. So every July 1st, those interest rates change. Federal student loans, a lot of students don't think it's considered financial aid. It's still a form of financial aid. We wish no student would have to borrow a federal student loan, but we do know that some students do need to borrow federal student loans. We do encourage students to be responsible loan borrowers. So only borrow what you need. Don't just we'll offer you the maximum that you could get, but we encourage you to just borrow what you need. So let's say you get your financial aid award and we offer you $5,000 in a loan. If you only need $1,000 to get you through for the year, you can go ahead and accept only the $1,000, and then if something happens throughout the semester and you need to borrow some more money, you can always request the loan money back. So that money isn't going to go away. So only accept and borrow what you need, and then you can always borrow later if you want. We also encourage you to check at least once a year on that studentaid.gov website on what your total loan balance is, just so you're aware of how much loan you're accruing and how much debt you're going into, just so you can make some better decisions, on how much to borrow each year. So some important things to remember. Again, the FAFSA and TASFA applications are already available for next year. October 1st, they become available every year. You need to submit your application to UTA. The TASFA application is a paper application, so if you're going to submit that, if you don't qualify for FAFSA, then you'll submit that either in person in our office, or you can fax it, email us, or mail it to our office. The FAFSA application is all electronic, so you'll submit that online. It will take, once you submit the FAFSA application, it'll take about 3 to 5 days for our office to receive it. So if you want to check with our office after you submit it, wait about 3 to 5 days, and then we can see if we've received it and if we're requesting any additional documentation from you. So if you're chosen for verification, as I talked about earlier, we encourage you to submit those verification documents as early as possible. That way you're meeting that January 15th deadline. Also, you have to be admitted to UTA before we can award you financial aid. And then once you receive the financial aid, once you've accepted it and you start, and the fall semester is going to start, financial aid disperses 10 days prior to your courses beginning. So let's say the first day of class next fall is August 25th, let's say. On August 15th, whatever financial aid you've accepted, and if you've completed all the necessary steps, like let's say if you accepted a loan, you need to complete like a master promissory note, loan entrance counseling, but you'll be sent that information once you accept it. Then if you completed all those steps, then 10 days prior to your first class day, your financial aid will disperse to the university. It'll pay for what direct costs you have at the university, like tuition and fees. If you're living on campus, like in a resident hall, it'll credit that. And then if there's any money on top, so let's say you accepted $8,000 total in grants, scholarships, loans for the fall semester. So if your total is $8,000 in aid, but let's say your balance is only $6,000, that $2,000 extra, the university will send you a refund check, and you can use that for books, living expenses, anything, other expenses you need while you're attending school. So each student who applies for and receives financial aid at the institution must meet what's called satisfactory academic progress, or SAP. So every student, again, who applies or receives aid must be meeting these 3 SAP components every year in order to continue to receive financial aid in the future. So the 3 components are minimum cumulative GPA. So depending on how many semesters you attended our university, there's a minimum cumulative GPA that you must maintain in order to continue to receive financial aid. There's also something called minimum cumulative pace of program progression, or completion percentage. All classes that you attempt, you have to complete a certain percentage of those in order to maintain your financial aid eligibility. So at UTA, it's 67%. So that's a cumulative calculation. So cumulative of all the courses you attempt, you have to successfully complete and pass at least 67% of those in order to meet this component of our SAP policy and maintain your financial aid eligibility. The last one is maximum time frame, or max attempted credit hours. So as an undergraduate first bachelor degree seeking student, you can attempt up to 180 total college credit hours before you would have to do an appeal, or you wouldn't be meeting this maximum time frame component of our SAP policy. So if you don't meet one or more of these after after each aid year, we review this after every spring semester. We will notify you both through email as well as through the mail on which ones you're not meeting, and tell you how you can submit an appeal. So if your GPA drops below, we know things can happen, or if you had to drop some classes and that completion percentage goes down, there is an opportunity where you can submit a SAP appeal online through your student portal, through your MyMav account, and we can review it to see, let's say you got sick in the middle of the semester and you couldn't attend class for a couple weeks and that's why you performed poorly, or if there's some other circumstance that caused you to perform poorly that semester or that year. You could do an appeal with your supporting documentation, explain what happened, and then if approved, we would put you on what's called financial aid probation, and then we would give you certain minimum academic requirements you'd have to meet each semester in order to continue receiving financial aid until you're meeting our SAP policy requirements again. So again, if you can always check on our website at uta.edu/FAO. If you go under our policies section, there's a SAP policy, and if you can read more details on our SAP policy. But each school is going to have their own SAP policy. So if you're thinking about attending multiple schools, check with their individual school on what their SAP policy requirements are. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Justin Silcox, who is our Director of Scholarships, and he's going to be going over our scholarship requirements for our merit-based scholarships for the fall 2021 semester. So Justin, if you want to share your content, I'll go ahead and move you over, and then you can start your presentation. Give me 1 second. Okay, and go ahead, Justin, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. So I'm just going to be giving you an overview of what our major scholarship opportunities are for incoming freshmen and transfer students, as well as some of our more broad scholarship opportunities that are available after students already start at UTA. So let's get going. So first off, UTA offers over $30 million in scholarships a year. And this is combined between incoming freshmen, transfer students, and to our current students. So we do try to offer as much as we possibly can to help students being able to attend UTA affordably. Our largest scholarship is going to be our National Merit Scholarship that's specifically for National Merit finalists who are selected as a result of completing the PSAT in their junior year. So this scholarship covers basically what our cost of attendance is in order to attend UTA, and that'll include tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, and some transportation costs as well. And in order to qualify this, you do have to be a National Merit finalist and submit your National Merit Certificate to UTA by our scholarship deadline, which is February 15th. Admission to UTA, which impacts our scholarship criteria, is considered something called test optional for this upcoming year. And what that means is that both for admission consideration and for scholarship consideration, we are not requiring students to have taken or submit any type of test score like a SAT or ACT. So the vast majority of our scholarships are going to be primarily looking at high school class rank or high school GPA. But if you do decide to take the test and decide to submit it to us, we will look at it and consider it if it means it will help your admissions selection or your scholarship eligibility. So if you do decide to take the test or you have taken the test and are considering sending it to UTA, there's really nothing that could hurt you about submitting your test score. We will not allow it to impact your scholarship eligibility or your admissions decision in any negative way. It will only help you. So for example, if you end up meeting one of the criteria, like for example, a class rank criteria, but maybe not the GPA criteria, but if you decide to submit your SAT score, which is higher than, which could improve your scholarship offer if you got a really great score. So there's nothing about submitting a test score to UTA that will hurt you this year. The next level down for our scholarships is called our UTA Presidential Honors Scholarship. The value of that is about $12,000 annually, and it is renewable for a total of 4 years if you meet the criteria. So the typical profile of one of the students that receives this scholarship is going to be top 10% rank, 3.9 high school GPA, 1550 SAT or higher, or a 35 ACT or higher. Now, again, you do not have to meet all of those criteria. That's just kind of like a profile for what our scholarship recipients look like, but usually you need to have at least 2 of these things in order to be a very serious, to be able to be seriously considered for this scholarship. In order to receive it, you do have to be admitted to UTA by December 7th. The next level down is our Presidential Scholarship, which is $10,000 a year and $40,000 over 4 years. This profile is going to be typically students between 10% and 25% high school rank, a 3.7 high school GPA or higher, 1350 SAT or 29 ACT. But again, if you meet the rank or the GPA requirement, we do not require you to submit a test score for these scholarships. And the deadline for this is also December 7th. Our next level down is going to be our Maverick Academic Scholarship, which has a little bit different criteria and a more delayed deadline. So these scholarships usually range somewhere around $2,000 to $8,000 a year. To receive anything above the $2,000 level, you do have to have at least 2 criteria of the criteria listed below, which is 50% class rank, 3.5 high school GPA, or 1100 SAT or 23 ACT. Now, the deadline for the Maverick Academic Scholarship is going to be a little bit later, but we do ask students to be admitted, which includes completing their admission application and any required documents for admission by February 15th. So this is the typical profile of that scholarship. A new scholarship that we created this year is actually our 1,000 level Maverick Academic Scholarship. And this is specifically for students who may not meet the specific criteria listed in the other scholarships, but still tried to push themselves in high school by completing at least 3 advanced academic courses in the final year of your high school career. So this can include AP, dual credit, international baccalaureate, or honors courses. One thing to note is that we're not looking at AP test scores or even the tests or even the scores in the classes specifically, just that you completed the class. So if you completed 3 of these types of courses in the final year of your high school career and don't meet the necessary criteria for the other scholarships, this is still a scholarship that you could receive at UTA. Now, we do offer transfer scholarships. All the scholarships listed previously were specifically for incoming freshmen, but UTA does have transfer scholarships. They typically range from $1,000 to $4,000 a year and are renewable for 2 years. Eligible transfer students must meet or exceed the following requirements. So it's specifically a transfer GPA of 3.5 and completing a minimum of 24 transfer hours. In addition to that, if you are awarded a transfer scholarship and you are part of the Phi Theta Kappa program, we do offer an additional scholarship for that, which is an extra $1,000. You just need to submit your Phi Theta Kappa certificate to the scholarships office by February 15th of 2021. In addition to that, those are all of our scholarships specifically for new and incoming students, so for freshmen and transfers. But we do offer additional opportunities online on something called Mav Scholarshop. And basically what this is UTA has taken all of the scholarship opportunities that we offer outside of those previous ones we talked about and put them in an online kind of portal where once you're admitted to UTA, you can log in, create a profile, and the system will, 1, automatically match you with opportunities it thinks match your criteria, or 2, you can just browse and see what you may qualify for on your own. So UTA has thousands of scholarship opportunities on this portal every year. I believe last year we offered over $5 million in scholarships through this portal by itself. And so basically what we did is we just tried to consolidate all of our different opportunities into one place to make it easier for students to find the resources and apply for them. So once you're an admitted student, you can log in and start applying. And you can receive these scholarships with the other scholarships I listed before. And the last type of scholarship that we deal with is usually our outside scholarship opportunities. So if you received a scholarship from maybe your high school or another organization that you'd like to send to UTA, we do ask that you provide them with this form here that you can find online on the UTA Financial Aid website, which is just uta.edu/FAO. And basically just go to scholarships and outside scholarships. And what this is for is in order for us to know who the funds are, we just ask for each scholarship provider to complete this form so that we can match the funding with you specifically. So they just include this information, and that way we can get the funding on your student account as quickly as we can. And that's all for scholarships. Thank you guys so much for listening. And if you guys have any questions about your scholarship eligibility or anything else, you can contact us in the financial aid office or the scholarships office specifically, or if you have any veterans benefits questions as well. Thank you guys so much.
Well, thanks, Justin. I really appreciate all the helpful information on our scholarships. We did have some questions during the presentation. The first couple were scholarships, so I'll go ahead and just leave you on the screen there so you can answer them. The first question was, let's see, let me pull them up here. And I think you may have answered this in the presentation, but so the question was, are scholarship requirements on the website minimum ones that a student must have, or are those more indicative of what a typical recipient profile might look like?
So it's a little bit of both. With UTA becoming test optional in our scholarship consideration, we're trying to do as holistic of a review as we can in regards to scholarship recipients. So it is more of a profile. You do not have to meet all of the criteria specifically listed, but the more criteria that you meet in those specific academic categories, the more likely you are to receive a scholarship.
Okay, great, thanks. We did have another question specifically about the transfer scholarship. So they were asking where they apply for the transfer scholarship, and would they have to submit the PTK certificate in person in the scholarship department, or is there a way to email or submit that online for that certificate?
Yeah, so I'm sorry if I didn't mention this. So all of our scholarships, the presidential, Maverick academic, and our transfer honors scholarships, none of them require a separate application. You are automatically considered for them whenever you apply for admission. So it's basically our admissions application is also considering you for scholarships at UTA. Specifically in regards to the PTK scholarship, you can submit it in person, but you can also scan and email it to us in order to submit it online. And you can just send it to the email listed on our website, which is just schol, SCHOL @uta.edu, and we'll process it that way as well.
Okay, great, thanks. We did have a question about international students. So are international students eligible for those merit-based scholarships, and what are other ways that international students can apply for scholarships?
So yes, all of our merit scholarships for both incoming freshmen and incoming transfer students do allow international students to be considered for them. And what's really great about our merit scholarships is they also come with something called a non-resident tuition waiver specifically for international students or out-of-state students. And so what that does is it actually waives the non-resident portion of the tuition costs while attending UTA. And so actually our standard tuition for a resident student is about $12,000 a year. For a non-resident student or international student, it's about twice that. So the scholarship amount actually goes up quite a bit for international students who are receiving this waiver of non-resident tuition.
Okay, great. We had a couple questions that I think are going to summarize in one question. So there isn't any additional steps that a student needs to take to apply for those merit-based scholarships. As long as they've been admitted by the admission deadline, they'll automatically be considered, correct?
That is correct. We just started sending out our transfer awards last week for next fall, and we're planning to start sending out scholarship offers for freshmen this coming week. So if you've already been admitted, we're actively reviewing those files and we'll be making scholarship offers very soon. So we're just about to get this process started.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and switch it over to me for this question. So in line with the international student question, we did have a question about, I went over the TASFA application process and requirements. A student had asked if international students are eligible for the TASFA application. Unfortunately not. The TASFA application, because it's for Texas residents, international students wouldn't qualify to apply for the TASFA application. You have to qualify, you have to have graduated from a Texas high school, and you have to be classified as a Texas resident for tuition purposes. So that's different than if you're an international student and you may receive a scholarship and receive a waiver for the out-of-state or international tuition costs. You have to be classified as a Texas resident. And in order to be classified as a Texas resident, you have to graduate from a Texas high school, enroll in our institution within 12 months of graduating from high school, lived in Texas for 3 years leading up to graduating from a Texas high school. So international students wouldn't qualify to apply for aid via that TASFA application, unfortunately. But there are, like Justin said, there are scholarship opportunities both based on those merit-based scholarships based on admissions, as well as in the MAV Scholarship. Once you're admitted as a student, you could log into the MAV Scholarship and start applying for departmental and other organizational scholarships in the MAV Scholarship. So let's see if we have any additional questions before we wrap it up. Let me take one last look here. So Justin, this one will be for you. So someone had asked, when do students typically start hearing back about their scholarship decision if they receive one? I guess both, maybe for both the merit-based scholarships as well as if they apply for something on MAV Scholarship, what's kind of the idea of when they may hear something?
So for our merit scholarships for incoming students, incoming freshmen and transfers, we have already started making offers for admitted students for transfers, and we'll start making offers for freshmen this coming week. So it's usually within 1 to 2 weeks of you getting your admissions decision and getting accepted for admission at UTA. So it's kind of an ongoing process. And as long as you are admitted by the deadlines, you'll be considered for all the opportunities that we talked about. So it's kind of a rolling basis within a couple weeks of you being admitted. Now, in regards to Mav Scholarship, it's a little bit different because Mav Scholarship has scholarship opportunities from across campus. They're managed by different parts of campus. So some departments make offers within a couple weeks, others don't make them for a couple months after the scholarship closes. So it's really variable. So what I would recommend is if you're applying for something on Mav Scholarship, usually you can tell who the department is that published it. Like if it's the College of Engineering or the biology department, you can just reach out to the department and just ask them if they have an idea of when they'll be making offers, and they usually know, but they don't usually make it. I don't think it's usually listed online. So they're all kind of different.
Okay, great, thanks. I don't see any additional questions right now, and we're getting close to the hour, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope this information was very helpful for everybody. I hope you learned something. I think I even learned something about scholarships today. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office, whether it's about financial aid, whether it's about scholarships. We're always happy to help you. We want you to have access to as much money to help you fund your education as possible. Again, let me share one last slide here. If you have a couple of minutes to fill out our survey, let me see if I can get this to share here. Well, I may not be able to. So if you just go to our contact us page, the same page that you RSVP'd or joined the session today, at the very bottom there'll be an orange box about a survey. So we ask if you have a couple minutes to fill that out, so let us know how we can improve how we did. Like I said in the beginning of this presentation, we want to have more of these to have our prospective students and current students be more informed about financial aid and scholarships on the process and what money is out there to apply for. So if you have a couple minutes, we appreciate to fill that out. But other than that, again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We really appreciate you joining us today. Hope everybody gets outside and enjoys the great weekend, and we hope to see you in the fall semester. Thanks, everybody. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and go Mavs. Thanks.